Welcome to another episode of Give It a Nudge. They say timing is everything, and for once I have nailed it. Today I am very pleased to have Jessie Hughes from Leonardo.Ai. Just, 48, 62 hours after you got acquired by Canva, which I didn't know about. So timing is everything. Welcome.
Thank you. So stoked to be here. And yeah, the timing, you nailed it. You felt it. You could feel it in the waters.
When did I actually ask you? How long ago was it? Was it about, it's usually about 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, it was about a month ago. And I think our acquisition was last Tuesday to the public. So yeah, it's an crazy time for us as a company. Like, it's just unbelievable.
I did a double take when I read it. I think I read it on, I can't remember if it's Smart Company or Startup. Well, whichever one of those even newsletters. I was like, what? And I was looking at my diary going, really?
The media blew up. It was just absolutely massive.
They've not made many acquisitions. Have they made any?
Canva have been doing some clever play. Affinity was one recently, which was a really clever play. And then before that, there's been a series of very clever plays. And I think I'm excited to see what it means for Canva as well as Leo. So the clear thing to just be clear is Leonardo is still remaining independent as Leo. And then the acquisition means that Canva now has access to, our foundational model. We built Australia's first foundational model, which is a massive achievement to our research team called Phoenix. And so now Canva has access to that. Like, it had amazing text adherence. So text was really hard previously with Gen. But this model is bloody good at it. And so I think that was a little bit of why Canva sat up and was like, oh God, this is world class. And then just like the beautiful synergy of Aussies. Like, if you meet any of the founders, either of the founders, like, the vibe is so Australian and like chill and beautiful. And everyone's like, yeah, cool. We can run a company. Yeah, cool. Do you want to? Yeah, we'll build a thing. Yeah, sounds good. So I think there's just like a lot of synergy, and the timing, like you said, AI, bloody hell, it's like a spaceship. It honestly feels like a space race. So I think
it is a space race.
It is a space race. And at that point, like time and movement and like getting in the like timing and movement is very important in this space. And I think Canva just saw what an amazing opportunity it was. We kind of saw the power of distribution, like a distribution network. Plus Canva does what we want to do with Gen in the fact that it's for everybody. Like, it's for everyone. Canva's for everyone. And we when we built Leo as a consumer facing product initially, like, it was so that you could sit down on a computer and make anything you saw in your head. And so could my neighbor's kid, and so could I, and so could we. So that's a specific audience. Then you also have your professionals. So people who are media professionals, come from a creative background like myself or whatever it is. And so they're like experts at these fields, but it's that middle ground of being something that everybody can do as well as professionals.
Well, let's talk about, because there will be some people who don't know what it does. So you're going to tell that far better than I. Give me your elevator pitch. What does Leo, as you call it, do? Explain it to the audience.
Leonardo.ai is a generative AI powered content creation suite. So what I mean by that is we excel at image generation, so being able to generate imagery of any possible aesthetic you can think of. But what's cool about Leo is we also have all these other tools which kind of support that. So you've got this thing called real-time canvas where you can like doodle, like literally sketch.
Doodle.
Literally just have a little doodle there. And like all of a sudden your crappy little sketch can turn into like a beautiful image, or it can turn into a photograph, or it can turn into a render for a product photography or whatever. Through to, we have one of the best universal upscalers in the game. So upscaler just means making your imagery really high resolution, which for marketing and anybody who comes from a digital background, like, you get these low res crappy photos and you're like, oh God, if only this was high resolution. We're like, no worries, chuck it in here. And because it's intelligent, it can kind of like fill in the missing pieces and get these beautiful high quality renders. We have motion capabilities on the platform as well. And so we've got, I come from a screen background, so filmmakers being able to like make these beautiful images and then add motion to it. And all of a sudden you've got these moving things. It's insane. So what I think was really special about the platform, which is kind of what drew me to it, I got involved with AI, like Gen AI, like right when things were happening. So I've tried everything. I've been everywhere. But back then you would have to have like your platform for image gen, your platform for upscaling, your platform for video motion, the subscription cost at the end of, for real, like at the end of it, you're like, and I'm paying like all these other subscriptions. So it just was ridiculous. Whereas Leo is meant to be this like one-stop shop. You're there, you stay in platform, you can do everything. So I can take a project from start to finish, all within platform, and it be top tier, world class outputs.
So I've got a very personal question I'm going to ask you in terms of it's benefiting me.
Right? Yeah, please.
Stuff the audience for 1
absolutely,
second. Yeah. Hayo and I, my head of content, we're talking about a project we want to do where we want to bring together both video and animation, right? And we were considering the best way to do that.
Yeah.
We were going to start researching that this afternoon. Leo could be our option.
We could do some amazing stuff with it. Absolutely. So I wrote an adult animated TV show back in the day. Loved it, but the cost of animation is exorbitant, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only just cost, but time. Like the whole process is very hard. I think with tools like Gen.AI, the whole process can shift rapidly, and I hope to a place that is just better and more efficient. And I mean this in a way of expanding creative potential, not minimizing. I mean it in the fact that, you know, going and doing these very tedious tasks of, I don't know if you've ever had to rig moving an arm or something like that. I have not. Okay, it's very time consuming. All these kind of processes which were hard back in the day, and now, because we have intelligent software, it knows what your arm is and it knows the way that things are going to move, or it knows how something should look. The like very basic example I give to people is like back in the day you used Photoshop's lasso tool to like cut things out, and you'd have to sit there and like literally cut around the shoe and cut around the chair, and then you'd miss a pixel and the whole thing would be in the bin. You have to start from scratch, blah, blah, blah. Exhausting. Now our software is intelligent. It's like, that's a human, and that human's sitting on a chair, and I could actually take you off that chair and I would know what the chair looks like behind you despite not knowing what it looks like.
Yeah, and that's wild.
So like this kind of just significantly more intelligent ways of working means that me as a creator, as an artist, I'm not wasting my time doing menial tasks. Yeah, instead I'm being like, okay, good, now what can happen in the scene? How do I add more emotion? How do I make sure that my story is like being pushed to the limits? Or what's really cool about Gen.AI is you're no longer limited by your capital or even technical training. And I think this is the differentiated piece when we talk about democratizing creativity, which people get upset about when you talk about democratizing skills, right? But because it is a threat to specialize.
Everyone gets upset when you use that word.
Well, of anything that's a threat to specializations, it is. But then you look at something like, let's just take Canva as an example. I have a 3-year design degree. You can use Canva, anyone can go and make whatever they want, right? And that took me 3 years to learn how to build these things in InDesign back in the day. But why, like to me, that's amazing, because I don't think I should be going and making your newsletter pamphlet. Instead, I think I should be making, go do these creative things. And if you need a business need, you can solve that business need. So I think when I talk about Gen and the capability that's going to be afforded by Gen.AI, it's that you can now do the things that people are empowered. More people have more skills, and that is an amazing thing to me. That's an incredibly positive thing.
This is super interesting in that we've had this conversation a lot, and we've got it a lot more. We're actually going to do an AI week on Give It a Nudge.
AI week, okay, cool.
Because I think there's just a lot of misunderstanding, right?
Yeah,
so you've kind of got half the world who feel like it's going to destroy the world. We're all going to have no jobs, and that's the end of it. You've got the other half of the world who doesn't think we should do anything whatsoever, and it's neither of those, right? It's in the middle, and I think ultimately it is going to impact everybody's jobs. But it's also going to offer them opportunity. But they need to start learning about it. They need to start educating themselves about it so they can take advantage of it. Sitting there and pretending it's not happening and thinking the world's going to end, neither of those are great options.
They're not positive outcomes.
They're not positive outcomes. They're not positive actions. Yeah. And I think the whole point of that week we're going to do is exactly what you talked about. It's taking someone like you who did study 3 years for something. Yeah. But that has now been made easier for you, so you can grow. I
can now work so much more expansively.
And you can go to, but you can go. You can do more, but you can also go to another level yourself in terms of your design thinking.
100%. It's like this upscale. So I think it's like the rising tide lifts our boat vibe. So everybody else gets pulled up to here, and now I get to go even higher because I already have this kind of advantage. So it's like this sense of I really do think we're going to see it across the populace of just a leveling up, and especially this like partnership with someone like Canva. Like Canva have nailed democratizing skills.
They have nailed it.
They have nailed it. They've made it accessible. They've made it approachable. They make things that are hard easy, super easy.
And they're so nice about it.
And they're so chill and sweet. I know. They're just like, no worries, I got it. Like, I think I love language. Like I think language is so important when we talk about bringing people along with AI, specifically because previously, like technology as an industry, it can almost feel like a barrier to entry in the sense of like the terms are bloody confusing. If you don't people don't know what LoRa's are or like what a diffusion process is. I don't think you need to. It's not for you to know that. No. It's for you to understand how to do the application end. And it's for us to figure out how in the world to make it run efficiently. Yeah. And so I think language is very important. And if you look at anything that Canva puts out with AI, they call it the Magic Studio. Magic Studio. The Magic Studio, the background magic
It's the unicorn,
magic
it's that whole
expand,
thing, man.
magic.
It's all
and
fluffy.
It's like I love it so much because
It's easy to understand.
That's what it is. It is magic that I can just take this glass and put this glass on a poster, and it's magic that I can just like. It literally is magic. This is stuff that I used to think of as a child, like.
Would be magic.
As a creative person, you're in this universe and it's so beautiful, and I'm like trying to explain. I'm trying so hard to articulate to you what I see in my head. That's my job. My job as a screenwriter is to be like, okay, so we've got this story, we've got this thing, and my job is to get it out into the world. Now, instead of writing it into a script, I sit with a prompt bar, and I riff back and forth. And now what's even cooler is we have like kind of like prompt enhance or prompt describe with AI functionality in Leo. So like when you go into Leonardo, if I'm having a hard time articulating what I'm seeing, it kind of works with me in collab. So it will be like, okay, well, I think you're trying to say this. What if we put it like this? Or what if it's like this? Or what if it's like this? And all of a sudden the prompt is like shifting.
And does it learn you as an individual, right? Obviously you have a profile, you have an account user, whatever you want to call it, right? Will that tailor itself to you specifically over time as you use it?
You're talking about memory. So stuff like ChatGPT have built-in memory with their things. What we do instead is we would have a thing called either a fine-tuned model or a LoRa. So if you have a very specific aesthetic for your brand, you would then train a LoRa on your brand.
Right.
And so that whenever you would go and make stuff, you would just chuck on that LoRa and all of a sudden all of your aesthetic is similar. Or we have like Leonardo for Teams, which is our like
it's like a brand guide.
So you could easily like reference your brand guide and have all your output. It's fantastic. And if you have a body of work, we can just go train a thing on your body of work, and all of a sudden your outputs are going to be very similar and reflective to that. So there's a bunch of different clever workflows depending on what your industry is. Yeah. And that's so much of like what we had to figure out in the early days was we can do anything. Shit. Like when you can do anything, what do you do?
What do you start with?
Yeah, seriously, what do you do? And like our founders, the whole story of Leo was that our founder JJ ran a game studio. He used to run a game studio. And he was making these assets over and over and over and over again, and it's exhausting. Games cost so much money. They take so much time. Like it was like 8-month production cycle, which if you run a company, is a very long time
and expensive.
And it's just not. It's limiting your creativity. And this is the thing. It's limiting you because you don't have the resource and you don't have the time. All of a sudden, JJ was like, okay, what if we add AI to the mix? And he was able to rapidly turn around production schedules to weeks instead of months, weeks. And I think that was that planted the seed. And then he brought in the other founders, and like we're talking under 20 months ago. This is like
that's nuts.
Okay, here's some stats. Okay, so it's been like 20 months. We have 19 million users.
Do you really?
19 million users.
That's $1 million a month, bar this month.
Yeah. And we've just had the best month of our history this month. And we've had we're in like 190 different countries. We're truly global. It's so I love looking at stats of seeing like where we are in the world. Yeah. Every single continent, absolutely insane. We have every demographic is the other interesting. You talk about ages, you talk about demographics, like it's just everyone. And we have a beautiful community. We have the 3rd largest Discord community in the world. So that's like, I can't remember what, it's like just under 2 million people on our Discord. But the fact that that's like a loyalty. Like people
that's
are
a huge
like
loyalty.
people
it's
are
a very valuable thing though.
And what's cool about it is like watching when you talk about Gen, like there's the early adopters. And I think like our Discord community are definitely like the early adopters, the people like, okay, what is this tech? What do we do with it? And you kind of like fostered this really cute community. And now, because Gen is becoming almost, I would say, like people know about Gen now. Last year it was a bit like, what is this? This year it's like, okay, wait. I need to figure out what this thing is.
They learn quick though, don't they? Yeah. People do. When it becomes mainstream.
When it's a motivator.
When it's motivator.
Which there is. And I think like, because the motivator right now is competitive advantage. If you are not leveraging Gen, like it's the time, like this is these next. So this has been 6 months of the year. We're only at like the first half of the year.
I know.
And every single day I wake up, I'm like, oh, God. I look at my phone, I'm like, God, we've got a big day today, don't we? Like a competitor's done this or someone's done this or we've got this. And now that means we have to like pivot and you know, go and go and go.
It's fast. We see it every
so
week.
fast.
Every week it's a different conversation in here, even though it's
Oh
the
my
same.
God. See, I do a lot of like keynotes, and I had built my keynote on a Wednesday, literally finished it on Wednesday night, went on stage on Friday, and I was like,
So
honestly,
outdated.
just ignore all of these slides. They're outdated. No, sorry, a competitor
So last
came through
year.
yesterday. Oh, also 3 more things have happened. Oh yeah, and now like it's fun. It's very, very fun. And I think like almost the Canva acquisition, I think, is going to be the power that we need to get to this kind of like extreme level of like, we've got community now, like Canva has a massive community. We've got the financials kind of like security or backing to be able to do really cool
they're
stuff.
enabling you, right? To really
It's
go
an
for it.
enabler. And that's what was really cool about the acquisition, and especially being like independent, well, remaining independent. It means that we get to move the speed that we move at.
you
Leo
don't get
moves
caught up.
so bloody fast. We move every day. We're shipping. We just ship. It's like
All day.
quick, next thing. And like, I think being able to maintain that was really important by remaining independent. And I think it's just going to be the best. It's going to be best for us. I think it's going to be really, really excellent for Canva in the sense that they're going to have access to our research teams.
Absolutely.
We have one of the most amazing research teams, and it's just growing and growing and growing. If you're in AI research,
Cool.
come hit us up. But yeah, it's just an exciting time.
Let's go back a sec,
Yeah.
because I want to know how you got into this, because
Yeah.
you touched on it, and I actually don't know your past at all,
Yeah.
right? But you mentioned you're a screenwriter. Obviously, you're creative. Obviously, you're relatively high energy. Spotted that.
Crazy, yeah.
Where did you start your career? You studied design. We talked about that, right? So where did you go into graphic design? Was it even that a career for you, or did you just go straight into movies, or what happened?
Please don't make me design a logo. I hate graphic
I don't want you to design a
I
logo.
hate graphic design so much. It's just not for me. So I have AI now. Okay, I have a very bizarre background.
Awesome.
Yes,
I like that.
bizarre. So yes, I studied interaction design when I was
Right.
at uni. Interaction design is like kind of new media technology, as well as like how people interact with technology.
Yep.
And I'm
Good
also,
subject.
it was cool, funky. And I'm also an artist. And so it was this combination of like new media art. And I was doing like artist residencies at astronomical observatories, like taking solar data and converting it into like visuals. And I was doing just like a lot of this weird blend between art and tech. And then in 2016, Facebook acquired Oculus, which is the VR company.
Yep.
And so I was selected for this thing. I was so little. I was like 20 something. It was ridiculous.
So
I was like working underneath Zuckerberg, and I'm like, why am I here? What is happening? Anyway. And so that was really cool, because it was this idea of, I was the director. I was directing this VR film, and in Guatemala, it was amazing. The whole thing was cool. But this,
Super cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And it was this idea of, okay, our story is being afforded, like immersive media was being afforded by technology. And so this kind of like initiated this window of, okay, our art is pushed forward by our tools. What are our tools? How do we maximize tools? And what's cool about tech, you'll see it a lot with tech companies, they will have either like artist collabs, creator programs, like any sort of like initiatives that bring creatives into testing technology.
Yep.
I think, so my actual job title is a creative technologist. If you don't know what this is, it's a creative technologist, and it means this is tech, go do stuff.
Yeah, go play with it.
Yeah,
basically.
go do some cool stuff. And so from that moment, it really opened up this whole new career thing of I was doing like I wrote a whole book on VR and immersive media, and then I did like when AR came on about that, and then the Web3 and NFTs happened, and I was working for Queensland's Art Gallery as a digital resident to be like, should we add NFTs as part of the art collection? You know, is this the future of art? Like, you know, like these bizarre conversations. And then 2022 was when Jen kind of popped up, and I was like, okay, what is this? What is
And you
this?
just grabbed straight onto it. Did you gravitate towards
Yeah,
it?
kind of. I think it was because I'm so drawn to things that are new, but things that have scale. And I think I understood this thing. The thing with Gen AI was different to everything else that I'd been seeing. I'd been working in, I skipped over the whole film thing, but I'd also been working in the film industry for a few years throughout this. And yeah, it was just this idea of like when you pitch a show, people won't read your script, by the way. I've written the script. I don't know how many people have written it, not many. Because it takes time. It takes time for people to read scripts. But what they will do is they will look at a treatment and they will look at a pitch deck. So if you have a pretty deck and you're like, this is what my show's about, this is the tone, this is the theme. And I had been building pitch decks and treatments for film studios. And when you make them, typically you just go and take a picture from a different movie and be like, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like, now I sit here, I'm like,
Generate it.
I can actually generate the tone, what the character looks like, the age, the theme. And all of a sudden there's this like, the psychology behind persuasion with visual imagery. It's like, you're so much more likely to be persuaded if you see beautiful imagery.
That's why we do so much video.
Ta-da!
Right?
It's why the advertising industry works, And so I was kind of like really fascinated in that. I was also doing a lot of weird AI things. I was doing like how the insurance industry is going to change entirely, right?
You think about a good way, I think.
Oh, of course. Well, my whole case thingy behind it was this idea of like with AI, with the insurance industry currently, it's like something happens and then you repair. Whereas with AI, you predict. You predict that it's going to happen intelligently and be able to make changes based off that. So I was doing that. I was doing some like crazy AI stuff about like being able to predict teen suicide rates and this kind of stuff. So using like data of all this other data. So like when I talk about the spectrum of AI, I was doing a bunch of fascinating research and then the screen thing happened and I met the founders at South by last year. And the second I met them, when you just feel, I was like, you guys are cool, just bloody smart and you're cool. So it was just kind of this sense of there's something here and that was how we got into that space. And then since then, it's just been
rocket ship.
Absolute rocket ship. But I think what's been so special for me is because I actually I've worked in the creative industries for 10 years. I understand the use cases of the people that I'm talking to. And so it's not as if you're coming in with this technology that people are like, what is this? It's like, I've done your job. Let me show you how I can make it 14 times easier, right? I've worked for studios, I've worked for agencies, I've worked for productions. I've done my own things for years. Like, how do we use this technology to improve your workflow in a way that's like exponential? It's not like, I think there was like the conversation that people are scared of, like, oh, AI is going to replace me. And it's like, AI is going to enhance you. Yeah. It is going to expand you. It's going to push you to be able to do all of this different stuff. So
you got to embrace it though. People have to embrace it to enable it to do that.
But to me, it's not like, quick, embrace this. It's like, holy shit, look how cool this is. Like, yes, I want to embrace it. It's like, I just want people to play on tools. And I think when people start playing, there is this aha moment that happens with AI and Gen. And if you haven't had it yet, you're going to have it when you're sitting at a platform. You sit on this thing and it gives you magic. And you're like,
back to magic.
It's literally like, how is this possible? Like, how is this possible? And it's just happening in front of your eyes. So hopefully everybody will go and have their aha moment and we can.
You know what the difference is, I reckon? I mean, you're totally right? You're sitting there and you go, how on earth? And the reason that's so hard, I think, for humans to understand is the rate of change. Because if you go back, all the things that have happened, they go, how is that possible? Yeah. It's just so fast. Yeah. Whereas it's been so much slower. People have got a little more time to adapt to it. Whereas now it's just boom, it's like constantly being hit with new capabilities.
We're in I think we've moved past the fourth industrial revolution, almost into the fifth industrial revolution, overnight. There's these quotes about the rate of change and exponential change, but we're currently moving at the fastest rate in human history.
Yes.
The history of time of humans, we are moving at the fastest pace.
I think you're good at explaining it as well, because you're not a technologist. I think you have that, you like vocabulary, you like words. Yeah. I think being able to articulate that, because I feel like we're going to need to use AI to help us understand AI, because our brains are not wired to go that fast.
The pace is astounding. And I think what's fascinating is when people are like, oh, there's this new technology. What we're not realizing is this is the invention of the internet. This is the invention of the steam engine. Yep. This is the invention of electricity.
It's new.
The scale, it's everything. And the scale of disruption is different from
destroy.
There's all these different words and stuff. But it's when we talk about disruptive technology, that means business models change. And when business models change, jobs change and things change and the way structures work change. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. No. I think it just means change. There is change.
A lot of people don't like change.
No, of course not.
A lot of people love change. They will be the ones that will naturally lean in towards this. And everyone else will get dragged along because they have to, right?
Yeah.
I think, even if you look at electric vehicles, how quickly did that come, even though it was talked about for so long? Yeah. But it was nothing compared to the speed of this.
I think because AI in itself is the fastest thing that it's speed, it's absolute speed. And it's I think the most valuable human skill of today is adaptability and being receptive to shifts and change. Yep. And you think, so I was born in 1994. So I was born when the internet came about. And I think when you look at even Gen Zs or Gen X or the little ones, it's you put the little ones. I'm like, am I counted?
Alpha?
Yeah, Alpha, Gen
Alpha.
A, yeah. And it's you watch a kid use a piece of technology. It's second nature to them.
Completely.
It's not even a thing. I have a neighbor who I babysit, and she's like 5, she can't read, but she talks to technology, and so she doesn't need to read. You know what I mean? It's like her what she wants to achieve is still be able to be achieved. And I think I think almost, and then I watch my parents who are in their 60s use technology, and it's like a battle. Every bloody day is a battle with them on their phone. And it's just like, it's going to be a fascinating thing watching what happens as we go through this massive transition. So much of what I am personally committed to is bringing other people along. It's why I do so much talking and teaching, is because I'm like, this technology is for you. Yep. It's for you. Let's show you how to use it. Let's get it in your hands. And I think Canva have just nailed making it accessible for everybody. And I think Leo is definitely going to really be with this kind of next phase. Like, how do we make this for everybody? I want this to be for everyone.
You're very engrossed and embraced in this, right?
Yeah.
How easy was that for you? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that, right? They do.
Yeah. For me, it was seeing result. Like you sit at a computer, press a thing and get the result. Yep. You cannot see, you can't do that and have a different opinion. I just but
there's this lack of trust, right? That's the thing I come up against when I'm talking to a lot of people. It's the sheer lack of trust. Even with the ChatGPT, right? People will say to me, "Oh, I need to write this document." I get ChatGPT to do it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, because I wouldn't want to do that." And I'm like, "Why wouldn't you want to do that? You can still change it. Like it's not. You don't have to. But it saves you so much time, and that's the most basic use of Gen AI in the world. Yeah. And people still have a lack of trust in that. So when you get to things like, I mean, maybe there'll be more trust in the visual stuff than there is in the written. I don't know. Maybe that's a weird kind of brain thing.
I think it's about learning what these technologies are for and what they're not for. Like, I think especially, I mean, we see it right now. So ChatGPT, right? It's like the fastest consumer adoption thing in history ever, right? People were like, yo, you can make my job easier? Like, please, let's go, right?
And the school kids, they were all over it.
100%. But what I think was dangerous was people didn't know that what the result they were getting was a guess, right? People thought that it was like Google getting their search result, and the result was just a guess of what it could kind of like piece together on the internet. We have to remember, we are building and deploying in real time, which is scary about AI, right? And in 2022, there was a petition for Silicon Valley to halt for 6 months. It was signed by a lot of people, and that didn't happen because look at the money. It's not going to happen. And so I think in order to, it's just about how do we as a society prepare for this, just the biggest change we've ever bloody seen, phenomenal change. How do we prepare and make sure that our education meets it? And it's really interesting because I teach at universities, and you hear these professors desperate to teach, to have their students upskilled, but by the time they've finished writing curriculum, next week it's outdated. And I face this problem all the time because I'm constantly teaching this tool, and the next week the thing that I taught was irrelevant because now this new thing is better.
It's not just education, though, is it? It's regulation, it's rules, it's laws. It's an endless stream of things that governments will become so redundant unless they do something, which will take them ages to do because it's just. It's hard.
Well, we just did the there was a whole policy and thing in Australian government recently. I'm butchering what it's called. Anyway, there was a big thing of what are we doing with AI policy? And you've got I meet with policymakers as well, and it's just it's fascinating having these discussions because. As I said, we're all building, and we have to keep best interest in mind. And it's anytime you have innovation, it's this constant kind of contradiction of you can't regulate what doesn't exist.
No.
And as you're building, it's changing, and it's just this ongoing thing. And so I think for us at Leo, we're very, you make your company, you make up your own rules. We're very, 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 very committed to ensuring safety and stuff like that. So we've got a lot of not safe for work, filters and moderation. I think when you talk about AI and image gen, it definitely was something that we had to really, really, we're very passionate about protecting that. And so it's just been exciting, seeing, this it's just exciting seeing the industry both be birthed and kind of almost grow up and advance and as we move forward. And I think last year was very much how do things work? We're how do we build these things? How do we make stuff? And I think probably now as an industry, we all have a bit of a better understanding, and it's, keep building and making things much, much better. You just have to look at Silicon Valley and see what's happening with Google and Microsoft and any of the big players. Billions are going into figuring out who's going to win this kind of like AI
and
race.
You can't win it because it's not going to stop.
Well, it's interesting with those ones specifically because you're talking about search engine and the how search as an industry works. And search is funded, everything's related to ads, and a lot of industries rely, like journalism, whatever, rely on advertisement. Oh, actually, lots of our people are advertising marketing, and if that impacts, then business models go out the door, and then you change it. So it's like it's seriously all up for grabs right now of being like, what is going to happen next?
What's your wildest prediction for the next, let's say, 18 months?
18 months. Okay.
Yeah, otherwise it's just like, boom.
Well, like the whole, if you talk to like techno-optimists, there's this whole theory that like, this is the very, very like optimistic.
Yeah, well, let's have both. Let's have the wildest one. And then the
so like in the techno-optimist world, there's this idea that like, this is how we literally achieve utopia, in the sense that like, every single job is replaced by AI, and therefore we have to have universal basic income in order for society not to like chop off the king's head, etc. So that could be really nice, like end of capitalism, like utopia, and we all go fishing and like paint and eat peaches. I would love that personally. So there's that path, and I think the more what I think is going to see is just shifts in how we go about maybe teaching or education or learning. Like people of like my gen and even younger, like we have what I call transferable skills. Like we talk about this in like jobs now. So the average job thing of someone my age is like maximum 3 to 4 years in a company. Yeah. Whereas like my parents, they said the same job for 15, 20 years, right? Whereas I think for upcomers, it's like this transferable skill thing. And I think if you can do a skill in this industry, you can probably do it in this industry because the skill set is still relevant. So I think we're going to see that become much more prevalent, and instead of potentially maybe like degrees, it's going to be like upskilling of skills, and then the skills are going to come into different places. And whether we see AI, I think it's going to be a lot of collabs, like a collaboration between like a human and AI. Like I think this kind of skill set of being able to work the two together, maybe, I don't know, who knows?
You know what obviously we do a lot of recruitment. I feel like it's going to become,
of course,
we're not going to have a lot of companies with employees anymore. We're just going to have a lot of individuals doing their own things with technology, all collaborating in different ways. So rather than having, a structural, like you're talking about utopia where no one works, I think what you'll have is just have everyone's doing their own thing and people just find each other and collaborate and create stuff and do what they want. That's how I kind of feel it would go. I don't know why.
Yeah, I was a freelancer. I've been a freelancer for 10 years running my own kind of company. And I think what was really, really helpful about being a contractor or freelancer is that I did work that I kind of wanted to do. Yeah. And that's when you like.
Which most people don't.
Yeah, and if I actually got into my bloody CV, it would be exhausting. Like I have done every job under the sun, right? But what's cool about it is because I learn so much every time I get insight into a different industry. Because when you get access to an industry, in that, just by having access to that, like for example, going on a film set or understanding a film set. You learn more about the film industry being 2 days on set than you would in I've got a master's in a master's of screenwriting. You've got more you would learn in 1 day on set. And I think like when people have access to these different environments and communities, you kind of so much more, as well as, and we're not even getting into the idea of networks. Like networks are everything in the real world. 100%. The real world, your network is everything. And so it'll be fascinating to know how AI, what happens with AI in terms of like human relationships and how these relationships, I think they're going to be the most valuable thing. I think AI is amazing at things, but I think human relationships and human emotions and human connection, that cannot be taken.
Can you see humans talking to their AI of choice about their relationships with other people and getting an interesting opinion on them? Because, the worst thing about relationships is you can't see the wood for the trees scenario. And you don't realize sometimes when something's good and you don't realize when sometimes things are bad.
Yeah.
And that's always very like, that's very, very subjective anyway, right?
Yeah. So that, the dark topic, sorry, trigger warning everyone. But that research project I did about like predicting suicide with AI and stuff, it's fascinating because humans, there've been so many studies of trying to read a human face. Can I actually see? You could be smiling and being lovely to me in your head, being like, oh my God, I cannot believe I've got to do this washing tonight. Oh, this is so boring. I can't believe she's going on. Like, but you can't read that. No. And to be able to determine these things, like we can do body tracking, like sensors and heart rate, but ultimately the answer is not really. I can't really see what's going on.
Not without heart rate and brain activity and skin
even,
temperature.
Even with all of that, it's still currently quite hard. What was interesting when I was doing the study was about what is fascinating is we are creatures of habit. Humans,
we are.
Bloody hell, creatures of habit. So much so that our phone is excellent at predicting everything, and you might be like, oh my God, it's listening to me. It's probably not listening to you. It's very aware that you go to this specific location with this person at this time, fortnightly, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It therefore can predict that this relationship, blah, blah, blah. So because we are constantly giving out data about everything, constantly, stuff that people don't really think about is like my mom has frequent, like, you go to Coles and you swipe. Flybys. Oh,
what are
biggest bloody data source in the world. Excellent. I know I can predict that you're a mum. I can predict you probably have this many kids in your family. I can predict that you come on Tuesdays because maybe you finish your job at 3. So I'd probably put you in these industries because of this. Like, it's just data.
Can you actually buy anything with Flybys?
I have no idea.
I don't think you can.
I'm too lazy to have it.
I don't know either.
I should have so many points by now. Shit. We're living in a cozy. Come on, I got to get this together. But yeah, I think it's just fascinating is like we've known forever that data is everything. And now we live in an era of AI. Data is everything. Literally everything. And so I think like the future that we're kind of like building will be very fascinating. I worked on a project a few years ago where it was talking about like, what's the word? Like making your data into profit for you. Like almost like you were in charge of your data and you could sell.
So you're monetizing your
monetizing,
actions.
yeah. So like potentially that's a future that we like walk into. But then there's like crazy shit. Like TikTok recently they've offered deepfakes. So deepfakes as part of TikTok. So in the sense like you have people come to you for your likeness. So you could train a deepfake just off the videos you already have
to look like you and
and then I would just sell a script. I want you to sell this excellent water bottle.
Didn't someone do that? Didn't it actually sell her?
Oh, it's
Who was
super
the
common.
first lady? What was her name? I forget. I can't remember.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is initially, so this is interesting from my world of the screen world. Initially, we all thought that was actors, right? Actors were in their digital likeness, and this has been a big discussion, which I worked on a research thingy last year on this. But this is not Hollywood. This is your everyday influencer. And what's fascinating about TikTok and like other social platforms is this idea, again, democratizing. We used to think to be famous, you had to go to Hollywood. These days, kids, like there's like a study of what do you want to be when you grow up? And one of the most popular things that kids say is an influencer. And it's, I grew up watching YouTube every day and it's like, I want to be a YouTuber, it's the cool thing, or a TikToker or whatever. And what's even funnier is they have like legit valid pathways.
They are.
Yeah, like legit like valid pathways for kids these days. And so, the fact that this technology is down to the point of I can sell you my likeness to sell a water bottle to somebody for an audience, whether they know or don't know whether that's real or not real. That's when we get into this crazy new world. Digital twins is like a whole concept of having like this second digital identity that we can do stuff with. Look, there's so many. If this is something that's interesting to you, this industry called design fiction. Design fiction is like it's like go as wild as you can. What's really crazy is Silicon Valley constantly contract sci-fi writers because sci-fi writers writers. Astounding, amazing, because they're constantly thinking like, what if, what could happen, where could we go, blah blah blah. And in tech, so much of what we do is like, okay, let's just pretend that the tech works. Let's just say this feasibly could work. Where do we apply it? What do we do? What do we go? And like, it's really cool because I think for a long time, you were like limited by tech, but we just look at the speed of things are going at, not just our tech, like not just the research, but the hardware. Like the chips are getting this big.
Which is good because we're running out of resources. So
that's a whole other discussion. And I mean that is part of the discussion as well. Is like, how do we sustain a future where all of this is sustainable?
Well, it has to become biological in some form. We have to grow it.
I think when we look at like we're approaching like 2030 and like so I'm Australia's ambassador for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we look at all these things of being like, okay, so we as a world are trying to build something that is a sustainable future where equity and equality, so people have, this equal resource or equal access to opportunity. How can we ensure that while building a sustainable future that everybody's kind of brought along with, and that is also friendly to the environment? I think
question.
It's a massive question. I think we just look at the state of the world currently, and things are a bit,
they're not great.
It's awesome for some, not so awesome for others.
Yeah.
And so how do we kind of like use this technology in a way that everybody does kind of get.
Well, people feel it will happen, whether people want it to or not. Like,
I'm very optimistic with it. And I think like when you deal with a technology as powerful as AI, you have to be optimistic.
And it can't be controlled by the few. It's like, it's almost impossible to control it by the few.
It's fascinating, like when you look at sci-fi movies from like Western society or Eastern society or like these different areas, like the West are always like, it's capitalism and gone crazy and the robots have murdered everyone and blah, 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 blah. Like it's so devastatingly dystopian. And then you look at like European sci-fi and it's like everything's green and there's like happy people and happy futures. And it's just like the mindset switch with technology. And this can be applied to any technology. Any technology can be used for good or bad. And I think it's just like, how do we ensure that we're building in, I mean that being in the teams who are building it. How do you make sure that the people who are building it are, having frontline, like, what are we doing? How do we make sure that this is helpful for everyone and good for everyone and, these exciting things that go with it?
It's terrifying.
Oh yeah.
It could go. I mean, you could go for hours. You could really go for hours.
I do. I love chatting. We can be here all day.
We should do a whole like month-long series.
Yeah, month-long
But
series.
I mean, my mind starts. Well, the more you think about it, the more frightening it gets because your brain just comes up with all these different ideas, and then I can't focus on anything. How do you do that? How do you bring any focus? Because you're right in there. Not only are you in there, you're like you said, you're building and building and shipping and building and shipping. And you also see the possibilities, and you're also exposed to so many other things that other people aren't about what's coming and what's possible. How do you get any focus? Because I struggle with focus, and I'm nowhere near as connected as you are.
I am really obsessed with application. I love application. And by that, I mean like, there's all these like what's possible, like what could be possible. I'm just like, how do we apply that? Like, how do we literally apply that? Like, how does what we're making make your day easier? How does it make your day easier? How do we make the thing better? How do we make it more efficient? How do we make it, how do we start improving workflows? Like I'm obsessed with this kind of stuff. And I don't know whether it comes from, again, having to have done it myself. It's just like, how do we make these things better, but also expanding possibility?
Probably comes from being a freelancer. You've almost had to think like that all the time, right?
Seriously,
because you haven't had resources.
You have no resources at all, and it's like, how do I achieve what 10 people achieve as a solo person? Yeah. And I keep bringing it back to this like younger generation thing, but for real, you see like a 20-something-year-old, I teach unis, and you see these kids like, they know how to use all of this software, which previously you would have had to have a degree to understand how to use this tech.
Or at least a course, like a week course or something. Yeah.
And I sit there and I'm like, how do you know how to do that? They're like, I watched on YouTube. On YouTube.
Everything's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. I YouTubed it. And you're just like, shit, I could have done that. I didn't. No. I'm not going to. But it's this shifting of like, and I think what's fascinating about this is people who want to learn, if you want to learn anything in this world, it's available online for free. You can know, like information is endless these days. But what's different is this idea of like almost what's the word? Like agency. Like I feel like a lot of people now are like have agency because they're like, oh, I want to learn this thing. I'm going to learn it, and then ta-da, my skill set's expanded.
Do you YouTube things more? My kids YouTube everything. And because of that, I YouTube things so much more than I would. And I'm amazed how easy things are.
Well, it's just, I think when you, it's almost that sense of like, if you can understand how to do something on one platform, there's a very strong chance that that's going to be transferable onto other things. To the point of like, when we talk about UI design or UX design, like of when you build technology, there's almost an assumption that because you know how to use Instagram, or you know how to use Facebook, or you're probably going to understand what a post is.
It's just intuitive, right?
Yeah, it's intuitive. And so we're building this intuitive technology. And I think when, you get used to interfaces, like it's almost second nature that this predictability of learning goes much faster.
I saw my daughter once create a presentation for school that she had accidentally deleted whilst eating a bowl of cereal and looking at her phone, all at the same time. Yeah. And she was just doing it without looking on her hand. And I'm looking at it going, what the? Yeah. And that's when you talk about children. I mean, my kids are 16 and 14. Yeah. And they just do it. It's they don't know any different. It's never not been there.
Absolutely. But and this is where, like, again, use Canva as an example. Like back in the day, like having a beautiful presentation would be like, if you walked in with a beautiful presentation, people would literally sit up.
Oh, time and money have gone into this.
They would say, like, oh my God, that's a 3D asset on that slide. Oh, it must be great. Here's $1 million, right? These days, if you walk into a room with a shitty-ish presentation, people won't even look at your board. They dismiss you. They're like, no, because the bar has been raised.
Yeah.
We as a society have raised the bar. And I think like that is, that's a good thing. It's a good thing because our tools are so much easier that your 16-year-old can sit, eat a bowl of breakfast, check up on TikTok and have her deck be beautiful. And then we're going to go into the next phase of being like, hey, I've got this presentation due at 12. Could you just make that presentation for me? I need it to cover these points. Bang, bang, bang. I've just used my voice, AI, done. All of a sudden, generated a whole thing, and I go in, correct a few things, and tweak it. And it's like when you talk about these different elements, like there's things that human time and energy should be put towards, and then there's time and energy where it doesn't need to be if that's not the goal. If the goal of you, say you're like the top research, you're a genius researcher. I don't need you to be excellent at graphic design. I need you to be good at explaining what your breaking edge research is. And then we can just go put it in a deck that's going to be significantly more persuasive because people are visual people and they just need bites of information. The other thing is we're becoming a society of attention spans like
So do you know what it's down to? So someone came on the show and told me.
Oh yeah, cool.
So goldfish now have a longer attention span than humans. So my understanding was that humans had an average attention span of 12 seconds. That's what we used to have.
Wow.
And goldfish are like 6. We are down to 4.
Far out.
So we are now more forgetful than goldfish.
Yeah.
And this is,
right.
I don't know where, I wish I could remember
That
which guest
so
it was. We'll have to go
funny.
back through and look through it. But there was a scientific study. It wasn't just someone
I
making
believe
it.
I feel it in myself.
Goldfish are going to rule the world. Them and sci-fi writers.
They've got it. They know what they're doing. You guys are great. Well, I worked with orangutans for a while. I said I've got a weird background, but it's just like, you just watch orangutans. Like they have the intelligence of a 5-year-old, and just the way that they can use tools. It's fascinating. Anyway, you look at them, and then you look at humans, and you're like, oh, look at us all. Just out here, we've got really good tech. Monkeys with really good tech. Like it's crazy, a bit scary. But no, it's exciting just seeing these different like workflows come in, and I mean, if we talk about attention spans. Visual animals, your stuff better look good. Well, it better be captivating, and it better be,
I mean, my attention span was always bad, but they're definitely getting worse. Look, and with that, we should probably wrap this up. And we're going to have to get you back on. One, because we haven't really touched on your business too much. We've just touched on the greatest scale of things.
Sorry, Leo.
And you've just had one of the greatest weeks of your life where you've just enabled your business to go ballistic. So I really want to get you back. And, and often we get people back a year later. That's way, way too long for you. We're going to get you back before then.
Amazing.
Because I want to hear what's happening. And I want to hear how the sci-fi writers are going. And I want to hear how Canva has enabled you to achieve amazing things.
Oh, we're so excited about it.
Thank you so much. Your energy is infectious. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Amazing.
I hope everyone's enjoyed it. And I can't wait to get you back.
I'm excited. Cool. Thanks so much for having me. And fun facts about goldfish. How good.
Who knew?
Who knew? Amazing.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. I know I did. Please don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.